Welcome everybody to an episode where a six-time world champion, myself, is going to take you through all the striking basics right from an entry-level jab all the way up to a head-level round kick off the back leg. We're going to make sure that you have all the finer details of these basic techniques down pat. Because let's be real, there's no point moving from beginner to intermediate if you don't have those essential basics down. They are what win fights. They are what create world champions. They are the most important thing out of everything. So let's roll the intro and we will get to all the details of the striking basics you need to know. All right, this episode can be done with no gloves, or if you want, you can throw on a pair of gloves just so you're getting a realistic feeling for where your hand should be and exactly what you're trying to achieve with each strike. Now, as I said, this is going to be follow along, but I don't want the episode to go too long. So the basic techniques we will run through very quickly, maybe 10 or 15 repetitions of each technique, and then we will get to the more advanced things, still staying in the beginner realm. We'll drill those just a little bit longer because there's more things to keep in mind to get that technique down perfectly. So before we start throwing the techniques, let's just take a look at our stance very quickly. I mean, this is not a stance episode, this is a technique episode, but I just want to make sure everybody has the basic idea down. When you are standing with your legs parallel, you just take a walking step forward. What you should be trying to look for is shoulder width to begin with, and then with that walking step forward, I have created the right length. Now with the appropriate length and the appropriate width, I bend my knees very slightly, and that's my stance. That's all I need. In addition, if you want to add something, you can be very aware of what your back foot is doing. I realized today that my camera angle is not enough so you guys can see the entire back foot, but basically all I'm doing is I'm going from a flat foot and I'm elevating very slightly through my heel. And that from there allows me to have a little bit more punch, a little bit more spring, I should say, when I push forward. Just like when you see somebody get ready to sprint, they don't have their heel flat to the ground, they have their heel disconnected and they're ready to explode forward. So that's basic, but we have the stance down. Now from here, let's look at what our hands are doing. Hands tucked to the cheeks. It's your choice if you want to have your hands resting below the eyes or above the eyes. Let me explain quickly the benefit of each. From down here, it's a little bit easier to see and it's easier to execute head movement. Because when my hands are up, now my head is super wide and very heavy to move because I have that extra weight dragging me side to side. But the downside of here is my entire head, the top at least, is exposed. So I do have to do some sort of maneuver to make sure I don't get hit in the forehead. Up here, you're already guarded. So it's just a matter of, do you prefer to utilize head movement and then do little blocks, or do you prefer to just have shots come off the guard and make that shell? In addition, we want to protect our body. So we want to make sure the elbows are not flared, and we just draw them in. And then from there, my head is protected, and my body can be fully protected by just having little drops. But again, this is not a defensive episode, this is striking, but I just want us to start with those two things, stance and proper guard. From here, let's move into the entry-level basic, straight out for the jab, straight back. The finer details that many people miss are as I throw out, I want to make sure the hand turn so the palm is at least facing down. You could rotate even further if you'd like to. You can also make sure that the shoulder that you're punching with comes up to protect your jaw. In addition to that, the other hand stays tight to the head, and we want to pull the shoulder far forward so we maximize distance. So my shoulders don't stay square when I punch. My shoulders turn, and the hand I have that is not throwing the punch can just draw back a little bit. And it's almost like I'm creating counter force, opposite directions, to pull a little bit more power through that punching arm. Let's go through 10 counts on the jab. And 1, doesn't have to be fast. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. From here, we'll go to the cross, which is the backhand. On the backhand, we need to rotate the shoulders completely So the back shoulder becomes the lead shoulder. Same as before, we turn our hand all the way over so the palm is facing towards the ground. We draw our shoulder nice and high so it protects the chin. And the other hand, especially if it was disconnected before we started the punch, needs to pull back to the head. And now from there, I've achieved everything I need to, making sure that I can maximize the power of the shot while still staying defensive with it. Let's get 10 counts in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. One of the most common errors on the cross, because it's the power arm, is to overload it or to show people what's coming by raising the elbow first and then punching out. Now, when I do it slow, it looks ridiculous. You're going, nobody would do that because just does not look like it works, but it actually does work very well for building power. It just kind of lift and let the elbow flare out, and it gains you some, I'd say about 10-15% extra power in my opinion, but it exposes the shot very early to what you're throwing. So make sure when you throw your cross and your jab for that matter, elbows stay tucked and you rely on the torso and the hips and the feet to push through, and then the arm, keeping elbow tight, follows at the very end. From here, let's move into the back arm hook. When we throw our hook, same idea as before. We want the other hand to lock to the head when we finish our technique, so we're being defensive. The shoulder can draw upwards. Now, let's talk about some of the finer points of the hook. Again, we don't want to raise the elbow like we did on the cross incorrectly and then try and come out. We want to raise as we're coming into the technique instead of preloading it up. As we come up, we want to finish and make sure that our elbow is as high as the fist. This means when I make impact, all the force is going to go through my wrist, through my forearm, into the elbow, and then draw through the rest of the body, as opposed to having my elbow low, where it hits and all the force goes into my wrist, and then my wrist probably gives out. So elbow nice and high. It's up to you if you prefer thumb up, towards you, or even facing down. You need to feel what works best for you and your wrist. So we flow through, we come right back to here again, making sure the back shoulder becomes the lead shoulder as we execute the movement. 10 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And from here, let's go to the lead hook. Now, the lead arm, hook and uppercut, are both a little trickier, in my opinion, because if we have our left shoulder or our lead shoulder in front and we go to throw, we don't have that much power. So what we have to do is preload the shoulder. That's what I call it. So we twist and we just get our body a little bit more even so that we have some power to unwind. We don't have to do this off the back shoulder because it's already in the position to unwind. So we start with our left hand in front, we pull it back very quickly, and then we unwind. You might be concerned about this slowing up the length of the punch or the speed of the punch, but it's so minimal, and generally will hide the twist or the preload behind another punch and then unwind. But if you're starting with that, we need a little twist and then unwind. Twist and unwind. Elbow high, other hand tight, just like we did on the last hook off the back arm. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now from here we'll go on the lead arm uppercut because we need to keep the same motion in mind where we preload, except on the uppercut we want to preload and bend our knee. When we bend our knee, we're going to be able to now lift out. It's almost like we're doing a squat and then we lift out to gain lots of power. The alternative is to use your arm like this, which is just terrible technique because as soon as you drop and you come up, your head is exposed for far too long. So I bend my knees, I keep my hands tight to my face, and then I lift out, and then finally at the end let my hand leave my head. So the amount of time my face is compromised is very, very small. One more time, slow, both hands tight to the head, rotate to preload the lead shoulder, unwind, throw your uppercut. You want to make sure that it's not too far away, but also not too close to your face. right about there. And you want to make sure your elbow stays directly below the fist, because if we start doing silly things like that, it's going to really compromise the wrist on impact. 10 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and working off the other side. One additional thing you guys will note throughout all these punches is my chin is not staying super high. I just want to let my chin draw towards my chest, which makes it less exposed and more difficult for people to actually find and clip. So just chin tuck just a little bit. Now we're working the uppercut off the backhand. The back shoulder is already preloaded, so I bend my knees and then I just lift out of it to throw that uppercut. Other hand pulls back to the head as we throw the uppercut to keep ourselves as defensively positioned as possible. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And those are all our basic punches at head level. If you start to feel comfortable with those, then what you want to do next is start stringing shots together and being able to throw what are called combinations. But we're not working on that today. Everything is going to be single techniques. We will, however, touch on 2 techniques down to the body with the hands. We're not going to spend too much time here, but I do want us to go through the back arm straight punch called the cross, but I want us to go down to body level. What a lot of people will do incorrectly when they go down to the body is they try to bend their knees to get down to body level, and then they throw. But as I bend my knees and I squat down, I'm going to compromise most of my power. So we're going to keep the back leg not locked in place, but almost straight. And we're just going to throw the hand lower than it was initially. That will take this punch right down to the solar plex, and it'll give you lots of power and force so that when you hit, it actually causes some damage. The other hand needs to be very tight to the head, because on this one, since we're punching low, it's very hard to protect this side of our head. So at least one side is covered right now. So straight out, straight back, and that's it for 10 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the last punch we're going to run through today is the lead arm body hook. Now, we already talked about the head level hook where we twisted, preloaded, and came out to head level. We're going to do all of that the exact same, except this time we're going to twist and unwind down to body level. Because we're going low with the shot, our elbow needs to go low as well. We don't want the elbow high and coming in all weird on our angle, so just twist, unwind, and come straight in with the knuckles with that wrist and elbow supporting the fist. 10 counts. 1, 2. This is my favorite punch, by the way. 3. One that I do a lot of damage with. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, we're flying along, doing nicely. Upper body's done. Let's move down to the basics for the legs. We're going to start with a front kick. For a front kick, we very simply, off the lead leg, lift. As soon as I lift my lead leg, what I'm looking to do here, because I'm going to be striking with the ball of my foot, so that means I need to point my foot, but pull my toes. This is a very difficult motion for people to position their foot in if they're just learning. So what you can really do is just practice essentially the position I'm in here. Flex your toes like a ballerina as far as you can. You should feel your ankle locked out here. If somebody grabs it and tries to wiggle it around, it won't bounce around like this. It's in position. Then once I'm in that position and my toes are pointed, I need to pull my toes up as I continue to point my foot. Now when I throw my kick out, I'm going to land with the ball of the foot. The benefit to landing with the ball of the foot is it's a smaller striking surface, but you're going to kick with the same amount of impact. And it's basically the same idea that if I punch with this glove, the impact is spread out of the whole surface there. But if I punch with my knuckles only, the same impact is spread basically into those two small knuckles. This is going to be so much more damaging. Same idea with the kick. As we throw our kick, we elevate the lead leg. We let our foot hang right below the knee. We don't do anything weird like have our foot off to the side. It's just straight below hanging. From there, I extend out, I pull right back in, and then I drop. So you can basically make it 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what we need to work on is leaning our head back very slightly as we kick, because we don't want to be straight up like a robot going hook, hook, hook. We want to be a little bit more fluid, whereas I kick, I lean back, and it acts as a counterbalance. My upper body and my lower body will act as a counterbalance so that I can hold that position as opposed to keeping my head here where I kick and my body wants to fall forward. So you just need to find your correct positioning for you. Hands are up, lift the leg, extend out, and drop back down. The final thing will be, what are our hands doing? Well, the hands, when you're starting, can just stay here. You do not want them to drop down. You can additionally swing the lead arm if you want to the outside of the hip, or hands can just stay up there. And you just note, again, I'm leaning my head back very slightly. Let's get in 10 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now off the back leg, fairly similar, except this time we need to focus on what our standing leg is doing. So when I lift my right leg, for instance, right now, my toes on my left leg are pointing towards you guys. As I lift, I don't want these toes that I'm pointing towards you to still be in this position. I want them to be off to the side. This is called a pivot. This is where my standing foot, so if this is the foot on the ground, it turns out. It turns out because it allows me, when I pivot, look at my range, no pivot, pivot, I create more distance because I've pushed my hips just that little bit more forward. So off the back leg, I lift my leg up, I pivot to really push the right hip forward. Now we're in basically the reverse position, which we just were. I kick, and then I come right back, and I have to unpivot. Up and out, up and out. 10 counts, ready. 1, hands are up. 2, make sure that your right hand takes the lead as your shoulders twist. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, from here, keeping in mind the pivot, again, which is when your foot is on the ground and you twist your foot across the surface of the floor to open up your hips. If I'm standing towards you guys and I disconnect my left foot and I start walking my left foot as far as I can this way, with my right foot stuck to the ground, I'm going to have to stop because my knee joints are not going to let me move any further. But if I take my right foot and I pivot it so my toes are pointing this way, now I can turn my hips so that the two hips line up. And that's what we want for our roundhouse kick. We want to throw our round kick, take our hip that was parallel and put it completely in front. As I lift my leg, I tuck my heel close to my bum. I get my heel elevated at the same height as my knee. And then from there, with toes pointed, I snap out for my round kick, striking with either the shin or the foot. Boom. And I come right back down to the ground. On this one, we're going to actually start with our back leg because this one's easier to throw off the back leg. On the back leg, we are going to make sure that one hand swings down. That matches the leg that's kicking, and the other hand protects the head. And you guys should note that my shoulders and my hips move together. Don't have your hips move and your shoulders stay square or the opposite. Everything moves as one, and it's all based off that pivot that we do off our standing leg. 10 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you want to get better at this technique, because it's not the easiest to learn, you find a surface, you lift your leg up, you get yourself balanced, and you just go through that motion nice and light until you start to feel comfortable with it. Then you speed it up, and you're going to feel your hip fatigue and get challenged by the motion, but that's what we want. From here, let's move into the left roundhouse kick. On the left round kick for today, to keep things simple, we are just going to lift our leg up. We can already have our right foot in a pivot position if we want, which means our toes are pointing off to the side. I can then turn my hips and throw my round kick nice and fluid. 10 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and now from here, the last technique for today is executing a knee, utilizing that knee joint from a closer range to jam into somebody's stomach. We're just going to keep it at stomach level. We're not going to throw it at head level today. There are many additional techniques which we can learn. There's elbows, there's lots of fancy punches and kicks, spinning kicks, side kicks, flying kicks, all sorts of things. But again, these are the basics. These are the ones that need to be down very, very well, so that from there, everything else that's more advanced can grow properly. A misstep in basics is just disaster for any future learning curve you want to have. So let's finish off with our knees. When we execute a knee, we're not trying to lift up and come this direction. We're trying to poke through. We're trying to attack the belly and go through, just as we would the cross to the body. It's not up, it's through. To accomplish this, we are going to draw our heel tight to the bum, and we're going to poke our knee through the target. We need to disconnect our heel on the standing leg a little bit if possible. That makes it much easier. And you guys can see, I'll go slow here. If I lift, I'm limited there to that range because my back heel or my standing heel is flat to the ground. But now if I disconnect it, I can poke that much further. What are our hands going to do? If our hands just stay here, square up the middle, because we're in punching range, all the person has to do is throw a straight punch, and I'm probably going to get punched in the face. So what I like to teach at the beginner level, and this still serves me in my fights, is one hand stays tight to the head, the opposite arm from the knee I'm throwing pulls across. And basically the elbow is going to become a blocking guide or blocking position for any straight punches. So as I throw, I draw my elbow across, and you draw it high enough that you can still see over top the arm. Obviously you don't want to come up here where I can't see what's coming. If I can't see what's coming, then if you do get hit, it's going to be so much worse. So hands stay up, disconnect your heel, poke through while maintaining that other heel to the bum so you're nice and tight, and one arm comes across the face, and nice and fluid, we execute our knee. Let's do 10 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now to get the left knee off, because I don't want you guys working on any skipping, but lifting and throwing from here is not super powerful, so we're going to walk through. We're going to step through, switch our stance, and then throw the left knee. This one works very nicely if you disguise it behind a cross, because you'll draw your opponent's guard up, and then you can execute down to the body. But for the purposes of today, just step through, switch your stance, execute your knee, and then step back. 10 counts. 1, 2. Remember to keep your heel tight to your bum. 3, 4. And elevate the other heel that's standing on the ground just a little bit off the floor. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there we have it, guys. All the kickboxing basics, running through, looking at the finer details, making sure that you feel comfortable going to a beginner level class or an intermediate or advanced class and being able to execute those basics correctly. It's something that a lot of people don't have down. They don't have every little detail down. If we do everything I said today and we drill and drill and drill and then start combining things together and we form that muscle memory, then from there we can start worrying about learning defense and start learning about that advanced footwork and how to catch kicks and everything that comes after that. So I hope many subscribers out there feel like this helps them improve their striking game, even though they're the basics. Again, they're the most important. And these are still the things that I focus on at the beginning of my training camp to make sure that I'm not making any massive errors to the foundation of the striking, the things that are the most important. If you guys enjoyed the episode, if you found it helpful, if you want to follow up one that is slightly more advanced, intermediate or advanced, let me know. If you want one on defensive abilities, again, throw it in the comments below. If you have not already, you're not one of my subscribers, make sure you join the channel. We just crossed 100,000 subscribers, which is super exciting. The momentum around the channel is growing and it makes me so happy. Guys, train hard and I'll see you back here soon for another video.